I now call this regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order at 5:30 p.m. Please call the roll.
Ms. Pearson?
Present.
Mr. Schubert?
Here.
Ms. McCall?
Present.
Ms. Bennett?
Here.
Mr. Carpenter?
Here.
Ms. Haley?
Here.
Ms. Stanford?
Here.
With 7 present, we have a quorum.
We'll now take a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. As we start each board meeting, it bears reminding that the mission of Rockford Public Schools is to collaboratively engage all students in an equitable first-class education for a changing world. We want to thank Ms. Kim Pedersen and Aaron Hill, who are working behind the scenes to produce the board's broadcast via YouTube, live stream, and Comcast Channel 20. I also wish to welcome Superintendent Student Advisory Representative Jace Nguyen of Guilford High School. Welcome. We are now on the regular portion of the meeting. Are there any changes, correction, or additions to the meeting minutes? If not, they will be accepted as submitted. Ms. Stanford will now lead Stakeholder Committee. Ms. Stanford?
Kim's going to do it this week. Thank you.
Ms. Haley will lead the Stakeholders Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's now time for the Stakeholders Committee portion of the meeting tonight. Let's start by showing our new 12-month agenda and our feature presentations. Tonight we will have Dr. Antoine Reed presenting on student listening sessions. Okay. We want.
Yeah. Hang on. There we go.
Okay. There we go. We want to remind board members of the opportunities available to interact with our students, families, and community each month. Please make sure you check the board calendar on rps205.com on a regular basis for the most up-to-date information. Now let's look at all the good things that are happening in our district. Washington Elementary hosted its second annual Santa's Reindeer Games before the holiday break. It was a festive indoor field day filled with fun and friendly competition. Students participated in a variety of holiday-themed games where they earned points, promoted teamwork, and school spirit. Games included snowball relay, gift delivery relay, hungry reindeer, musical cups, cookie toss, build a snowman, candy cane lane, and Santa's present stacking. 7th graders. So next slide here, we're celebrating RPS 205, the solar suitcases. 7th graders at Marshall Middle School built We Share Solar suitcases to bring electricity to schools in Uganda's Bidi refugee settlement, home to 270,000 South Sudanese refugees. Led by teacher Stacy Wallace and in partnership with Cultivate Power, these students gained hands-on STEM skills while making a global impact. Next, we have our red carpet celebration. Rolling Green Elementary hosted its Winter Red Carpet Celebration. This is the time where they celebrated their students' growth and achievement on the Winter Star Test. The event allowed students and staff to dress up fancy and walk down the red carpet to receive their awards. Next, we have our newcomer presentations. East High School's newcomer students presented their science projects to adult volunteers and fellow students. This was a great opportunity for them to build their confidence in speaking English with an academic focus. Each student prepared Google Slides and displayed a molecule model they built. They presented about their favorite molecules, the practical uses of this molecule, and how it affects their lives. The 78 students are mostly refugees from Tanzania, Chad, Uganda, Malawi, Haiti, Ukraine, Yemen, Jordan, Palestine, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Iraq, Syria, and Kyrgyzstan. The majority of them have been in the U.S. for less than 1 year. Next, we have our first robotics team. Congratulations to the first robotics team at Lathrop Elementary School for winning the Robot Design Trophy. Thank you, Ms. Peterson, for helping grow these future engineers. Next, we have our student-teacher orientation. RPS welcomed over 60 spring semester student teachers during the spring student-teacher orientation. Students from 12 university partners attended a full-day professional development workshop rooted in the Danielson framework to kickstart their student teaching journey. We look forward to their continued growth and success in our classrooms. Next, we have our NFL flag football. We have 30 athletes were chosen for the NFL Flag Football Girls Showcase at the Pro Bowl. Guilford High School seniors Maya Page, Natalia Stallings, and Kamora Strong played for the NFC team. They were the only students selected from Illinois. The event capped with a game this past Sunday at Camping World Stadium in Orlando that aired on ESPN. Community partnerships. Next is a couple of items of note with our community partners. Millikan University. Millikan University, Auburn, and Guilford High Schools held a collaborative choir concert last month at Westminster Presbyterian Church. This was a great opportunity for our high school singers to get some university choir experience, as well as take part in vocal workshops during the day. Next, in our community partnerships, we have our Rockford Promise RVC transfer to NIU. Rockford Promise scholars at Rock Valley College can now transfer to Northern Illinois University to complete their bachelor's degree tuition-free. To qualify, students must be Rockford Promise scholars at RVC who earn their associate's degree with a cumulative grade point average of 2.5 or better, and they must enroll at NIU as a full-time student. For our 205 Vibe, our featured post, on our latest 205 Vibe podcast, we sit down with Rolling Green Elementary Principal Amy Powell. Her school saw significant growth on the Illinois report card. Tune in to hear what led to the success. And now in legislative news, members of the 104th General Assembly in Illinois were sworn in at the beginning of last month. They have a lengthy to-do list, including eliminating a projected $3.2 billion budget deficit. Governor J.B. Pritzker will give his State of the State address on February 19th, and at that time, he will propose his budget. We are looking at holding another legislative luncheon with local lawmakers this spring. The date and the location are still in the works. Next, we have our legislative priorities. Our agenda for the legislative luncheon will focus on priorities that our board came up with at our recent retreats. We address those that are at a local, state, and federal level. Dr. Jarrett, is there anything that you would like to add to our legislative priorities?
I think we have the right list up there, and one thing I would like to highlight is we had a really strong meeting with Dave Vella, our local representative, regarding pension penalties. The district, because we have some shortage areas for staffing, often incurs some pretty significant annual penalties. And one of the things we're advocating for is that penalties not count against the district or any districts that are incurring those penalties when it's to fill a staff shortage. And he seemed really energized to make progress on that. And we're grateful for his leadership on the pensions committee and the work he's doing in the Illinois House.
Okay, thank you for that update. Next, our feature presentation. Dr. Antoine Reed and his student listening sessions. For our feature presentation, Chief DEI Officer Dr. Antoine Reed is here to talk about the recent student listening sessions that were held. They focus on the team's BAGS, B-A-G-S initiative. Dr. Reed, the floor is yours.
All righty, so I just want to thank my scholars that are with me. They are here to pull off the initiative. I would like you guys to come up. We have a scholar representation from our high schools. We have our scholar here from Roosevelt. She'll be talking to us today. Our scholar here from Jefferson and our scholar here from West. Our scholar from Guilford was not able to make it tonight, but we'll fill in for him. So I am going to start off talking about how brave these scholars are, because they were able to articulate some of the things they're seeing in their schools holistically at the secondary level. And they're going to capture what their scholars are saying across the district as it relates to how we want to act in our schools, how we want to show up in our schools, how we want grading to look in our schools, and our social emotional well-being. So I'm going to go and start off with behaviors, and I'm going to pass the mic to my scholar here at West. So for behaviors, if you click to that slide, one more. There you go. It was shocking to see that when we met with our scholars as it related to behaviors, that scholars wanted a more consistent and stricter consequence rubric. They were not asking for a lesson. They were asking for a more stricter process for behavior management. Then as it related to restorative practice, they wanted to talk about the reinforcing of skills that they can use in class and at home and everywhere else, and be more constructive and to de-escalate fighting. They wanted to focus on resolving conflict peacefully. Next slide. When it relates to behaviors, they also wanted to make sure that it was a calm environment, that they felt safe in their environment, that they felt security was able to address needs in their schools, and they had proactive hallway management. So I'm going to turn it over to Wes. She's going to summarize, she's going to introduce you with her name and summarize what scholars felt about behaviors.
Hello, my name is Sophie Gorney. Nice to meet you. And what I'd like to say about behavior is that students will not learn now. They do not learn by suspension. They won't learn by this anymore. The reason that we are seeing a rise in students being either punished or being suspended, just a rise in bad behavior in our students, is because they do not learn that what they're doing is wrong. They're just saying like, oh, I get 3 days off school. That's just as it's seen. And what I feel like needs to happen is we need to add back the level 5s into the other categories besides violence. The level 5s need to be added back. And the reason I feel this way is because students at West, and I'm sure my peers can agree with this around all of our PS 205 schools, is that students will not learn this. They will not learn how to understand what they were doing as a mistake unless they are seen as, oh crap, I messed up. And I feel that without this, they don't get the signs. They don't understand that. I'd also like to talk about hallway management. increasing hall sweeps doesn't fix it. It doesn't make students go to class. It just makes them more sneaky about it. What I'd say we do is we enforce rules that make it so it's harder to skip class, unlike hall sweeps. Hall sweeps, you just get a pass and you don't go to class. Or, well, you go to class with the pass. But people can still skip and hide from the hall sweep people. And I feel like that is just showing that it's wrong. That, oh, I can just get away with this and still skip class and, still be in the hallway. Because that is what happens, and I've seen it happen. So what we need to do is we need to either choose different ways, add more security, which I agree, add more penalties for skipping class, and as I said again, add back level 5 referrals for the other categories. Thank you. That is all I have to say.
Thank you so much. One of the things that when they talked in the listener session related to behaviors, where she were articulating that the hall sweep is just not enough. It has to be attached to something else. Like you get a hall sweep, but you do something else along with that to make it a learning experience, that I caught you in the hallway, and this is the learning experience associated with that. So as we move to attendance, I might need a team effort there. So attendance probably was our larger topic and our longest topic, because we wanted to know why scholars, maybe even, post-pandemic just are not coming to school. And I was talking to Lori earlier about the social connection, the homecoming events, the extracurricular things. The scholars felt that kind of went away, or it's not as strong as it used to be. It's not as consistent. We don't have consistent rewards and incentives inside of the building to make it a fun and engaging place to be. And there's a disconnect between the academics and the cycle of frustration surrounding how the scholars are showing up academically. They feel the workload can be overwhelming and not inclusive at times, and they face external challenges that prevent them from coming to school. And so these are some of the things that they focused on. The one I want to touch based on the last, when we talked about external challenges, was the parental leniency around skipping school, where parents were kind of giving the kids the okay to stay at home. And they felt that it needed to be lessons and, partnerships with the school to explain the importance to parents and everybody why it's important that the scholar is in school and in position to engage and learn on a daily basis. You can go to the next slide. And one of the other things is related to attendance. They talked about the outdated facilities. They want to, improve bathrooms and better access to hygiene in the bathrooms. They talked about better food quality and improved sports facilities and higher quality equipment. Jefferson in particular threw in that they want a field house at Jefferson. They need a field house to participate in various activities there. So these are some things that the scholars felt that if, some of these things were in place, they would be more encouraged to show up to school. So I'm going to let her quickly summarize that, and one of you guys tag in about what you heard about attendance from the scholar's voice.
The problem with kids not wanting to come to school is not just with the parents. It is also with drama with students scared to go to school because of fights, because of stuff that they've heard happening on the news, like school shootings, like the one that happened in Madison. Those stuff makes it hard for me to go to school, but I know that I need to go to school. And I just feel like that deters students even more than other pressing issues. All these incentives are good, but the only thing is that incentives will not be enough, because they still need to have the aptitude to go to school and learn. They can't just have incentives. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nevaeh Alexander from Jefferson High School. The only thing I really want to add to this is the simple fact that most students from Jefferson that I've heard The reason they don't come to school is simply because they don't want to come to school, guys. They feel like education is not going to do anything for them, right? The incentive of wanting to go to school, of wanting to learn more things, wanting to be a doctor, be a nurse, be a dentist, whatever the case may be, they feel like high school just isn't enough for them, or their teachers don't really care about them, or they don't have friends, or there's nothing to do after school. There's no game to go to. There's no club to go to. Those type of things. You want to say something?
Sure. Hi, my name is Mahalia Seward. I attend Roosevelt High School, community center. So I suffer from anxiety, and I just had a situation a couple weeks ago where I did not attend school for 2 weeks. My parents were very upset, rightfully so. But the reason I personally felt that it wasn't such a big deal was because from other teachers at past home schools, I've attended Auburn and I've attended Guilford, they didn't make me feel like I necessarily belonged at school, and they didn't make me feel like I was smart enough, and that there were other kids who were more deserving of, counseling or attention than I was. Being at Roosevelt, for those 2 weeks that I was not at school, I opened my email and, every single one of my teachers and administrators checked up on me and asked me if I was okay. And when I came back to school, they cared about where I was and how I was doing. If we had teachers and administrators who actually put in the effort to check up on their students, we wouldn't have as many issues as we have. Thank you.
All right. Next, we're going to move to our topic of grades. It's going to be led by my superstar here from Jefferson. So grades. Okay. They talked about the focus being more personalized to how they function in real world and the one-on-one support. She briefly talked about that. I will say, just hearing about grades, it was all about the connection to the teacher, and the teachers care to connect back with the scholar and make it real world to them and not just something that is robotic. And they wanted more problem solving, in a variety of ways. I want to say it that way. Solving problems on whiteboards, interactive tasks, and things like that. They talked about at the middle school the experience of having, so many scholars and not having that support from the teachers and, the lack of pressure and the mistakes of learning. They didn't feel that they were able to take risks. And the perception that, the teachers, carried over with the struggle in math. Math became the #1 topic of when we talked about, grades. They felt that they wanted to, as scholars, show up and show out in math, but it was a fear about math, that math was always taught that it was something you were to be afraid of, essentially. So that, something I remember from the conversation. We go to the next slide, and I'll pass it to my scholar here. So once again, they talked about the lack of real-world preparation, the disproportionate weighting of the policies as it relates to grading, test overload, and misalignment with college and career readiness. And they closed out the conversation as it relates to grades, talking about the transparency with getting feedback, that connection that some students found that, they didn't really understand if they were strong or weak at something they were getting graded on just by the things that were taking place in the classroom. So I'll turn it over to my scholar who can articulate that.
It was her.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you back twice on me. Let's do it.
Hello, Mahalia Seward yet again. So at Roosevelt, we are a self-paced school, so you do your work at your own pace. That has helped me tremendously because instead of having to follow this, I'm trying to think of the word. Instead of having to follow a strict time limit on doing my work, I can take as much time as I can, or if it is easy, I can just breeze right through it and then get to my next assignment. Along with that, we also have teachers who will help tailor these assignments to you, because just because you learn one type of way and you thrive that way, it does not mean that I will. So at Roosevelt, we have these teachers who will find alternative assignments for you So make sure that you do learn what you need to learn, but that you are able to complete it efficiently and on time so you can get your credits and leave. At the home schools, they do what I like to call the sink or swim. You either get it or you don't. And if you don't, it's not their problem. Teachers are here to teach, help, educate, and help students grow and thrive. At Roosevelt, we have those teachers. In our home schools, we need the same thing. Thank you.
Right. And our last topic will be social emotional. This was a tough topic. You keep going to the next slide. Because many scholars approach social emotional well-being. It's the next slide. We're still on grades. There we go. Thank you. From a perspective of the social emotional was a summary of everything else, right? If my social emotional well-being wasn't okay, I didn't care to come to school. I didn't care how I behaved. I didn't care about my grades. So checking on me as a human being was very important for these scholars. They felt that mental health was something that was not seriously taken, that we need more access to our counselors to be seriously available for them when they need them and not around a schedule that does not fit the scholar. They talked about an increase in student support, stress management skills, and addressing bullying. That was the number one thing that they felt, that bullying came in a myriad of ways when you look at social media for them, when you look at how you travel through a classroom, when you look at the size of a building. They talked about those things consistently. So I would say social emotional was the one that the scholars did a great job of summarizing everything through, and I will let, this time for real, my scholar from Jefferson come up and summarize social emotional.
Hello guys, it is Nevaeh Alexander. I'm back. Okay, the main thing I want to talk about with this topic is the mental health resources, okay? At Jefferson, at Guilford, I don't know if it's the same with Auburn, correct me if I'm wrong. Most of the schools we have counselors, right? And there's counselors for each academy. But at Jefferson in particular, we can only talk to our counselors during lunch, and that's just not enough time. If one of us is having a breakdown, somebody's having trouble at home, they need someone to talk to right in this moment. They can't talk to anybody, and that goes to show the attendance thing, like she was saying. Like kids would just find a way not to show up to school, not wanting to come to school, none of those things. As far as addressing bullying, I feel as if sometimes we have to shift the word bullying with our principals when we talk in front of students, because bullying sounds kind of like you're tattletelling, if you know what I mean. And we're middle school and high school here. You gotta bring it to, if someone is making you feel uncomfortable, if someone is making fun of you, if someone makes you feel like you're not worthy enough, you don't belong, then it needs to be talked about, it needs to be addressed, and principals and staff need to make it aware that we can talk to them, we can tell them without being a victim. As also with the mental health thing, I feel like we do need rooms or some type of place where we could just be alone. We could just have time. We could have a second. And I don't mean the IEP. I mean like strictly like everyone has access to this room. As far as, wait, could you go another slide? There's another slide.
Yeah, one more slide.
Okay, so student engagement and building relationships. This is the one that everyone talks about at school, everyone feels strongly about, and I'm sure you two also feel a type of way about, right? So when it comes to this, especially at Jefferson, I hear a lot of kids say, my teachers are only here for their job, right? And one of my friends today, he specifically told me that their teacher had some words and it kind of felt like they only cared about their grade, not them as a person, right? But me in particular, I've had teachers where I feel like we're cool, right? They understand me, they know me, they want to care about me. And that goes to show where we need to listen to our students, right? If our student feels like this teacher is not listening to me, this teacher is not doing this teacher is not doing that, right? Maybe let's listen to them, because when we feel heard, when we feel listened to, that brings us hope, that brings us joy. When I told some of the peers I had at Jefferson High School, they were happy to hear that I got to go to a board meeting and talk about students and teachers and staff and how they treat us as a community, right? And that's because we don't feel heard. We feel like some of you guys just are there for a check, to be real. But if we listen to kids, then there's going to be more attendance. If we listen to kids and give them the space they need, the mental health they need, the check-ins they need, the grades will be better, the attendance will be better. Overall, the experience at school will be better. And that's all I have to say.
Right. And we go to the next slide. Keep going. And so I want to first thank us as RPS, because it takes a lot to let a scholar just freely talk about how they are expressing their daily experience in school. We don't coach them on this because it's not authentic. So if they're saying something that they're saying is true from them, and they are able to capture this because they've talked about it so much, but many places won't do that. And I think if we step back in the places that, have engagement, it seems like a team, you're not a team without the scholars. So these scholars are very articulate, very educated on what they see on a daily basis. And I think RPS should be proud of themselves, because we do take the time to listen. And we don't stop at listening. We did it the first year, and we didn't know what to do. This time when we listened, our cabinet came together. Dr. Jarrett told us, no, you don't stop at listening. You have to have action behind it, or it's a waste of time. So we immediately went into troubleshooting around some of the things that the scholars were talking about. And they should feel and see those things, because we do believe they're our most valuable asset. We're here because of them. And when we take that notion, we do what we kind of did as a cabinet. As you can see, when we were talking about things as it related to nutrition, they already have a plan to deliver a more variety of, things by the end of May. When we talked about the collaborative efforts to address safety and concerns, our team is working on that. I know Heidi Detman's team, Jen Lawrence, they're working on various things. We're in our building supporting the hallway experience almost daily now, trying to make sure we're getting that to where scholars feel that it's not a perceived notion of noise, that they can walk through a hall quietly and calm, because that articulates in how they show up in class. And we're looking at our grading practices. I know immediately, I know Ms. Detman's team that were for weeks looking at various things that they were doing as it related to grades and grading practices, working with Morgan's team. So I know we didn't just stop at listening this time. We really were intentional about what we did here. With our master's facility plan, we're making those upgrades. We're looking at our bathrooms. We're making sure that we have athletic resources. One of the most exciting things, and when you go to East, and those scholars are waiting on that track to get out there and start running. They believe they can be the best in the state, and we're doing those things. So when you get out and see that stuff, it's because we were listening to scholars and knew what was important, we begin to act on those things. And the student code of conduct, I would say it's not a day go by that I don't hear Jen Lawrence talking about a way to make it more of a balance between making sure we hold accountability, but we don't target, but we care. So that is something she's juggling all the time, 24/7. She's not juggling behind her desk. She has her team out getting the experience to make sure she's making informed decisions. Next slide. And then just our cabinet. I was really proud of the cabinet. Christina went and got us together, and she looked at the things that were most important and had us look at, the one thing that kept coming out was effective hallway management. Is that perception of how your hallways feel and look, and incorporating activity-based learning into the onboarding, training, and expectations in our school. And Dr. Jarrett and Morgan has really already kicked out CHAMPS at the K through 8 area. We're looking at how CHAMPS goes all the way through. CHAMPS is very important because it talks about how you travel through the hallway, how you go to the lunchroom, how you come to the school, how you leave the school. That perception of how you navigate everything, it really is helping our schools, and I think we're playing that out. So A, I just want to thank us as a district for not ignoring the scholar, and B, for allowing the scholar to be their authentic self. It may not be the conversation everybody wants to hear, but these are the voices of the 28,000 scholars that we serve. They're consistently saying the same collective thing, and we're taking our time to listen and act. So I just want to give them a round of applause before I answer any questions. Thank you. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I do want to say that you young ladies are amazing, not only for your candor and for you being honest about your experiences and for having the courage to step up and here and speak to us and let us know what's going on. I think it's very important that we all listen to our students, because that, again, as Dr. Reese said, that's why we're here. But I do want to applaud you for being here. You are very good spokeswomen for the student body. Thank you.
you all.
So I just want to add, thank you so much for coming, talking to us, being honest, and we don't get to hear that often enough, how you honestly feel about things. So thank you very much. To Dr. Reed, thank you so much for all the effort you have put into our listening sessions and doing things differently. I think that we're going to start seeing the benefits of all of your hard work. So thank you very much.
Okay, so echoing what everybody said, yes, thank you so much for coming. You can come every single meeting. We will find a way for you to speak in any committee you would like to. So just know that that is true and let us know whatever you need. The second thing, as the resident social worker for the board here, I want you to know that mental health is important to us. We are working on it. I had a conversation with Dr. Jarrett about 2 hours ago, specifically on how we can get more mental health resources in the building, mental health people, so whole people, that's their entire job, is to provide support to you, services to you, be there exactly like you say, more spaces that you can just exist in. So know that we hear you, we are working on it, we're trying to figure out how we can do it, but it is top of mind. So thank you for sharing.
Ms. McCall?
Thank you. She kind of stole some of my thunder, but you know, young lady at Jefferson, you know, you said your friends are excited, you know, tell them to come, they're welcome, tell your homies to come to the meetings. It's more impactful from when we hear it out of your mouths, because you guys are the ones that are directly impacted, and you're the ones who are walking the hallways and things like that. So I just want to continue to encourage you guys. Don't, you know, because y'all came here and spoke, don't let that be the end. Make sure you're a part of the next steps, the next processes that are going on with these groups and resulting from these listening sessions. So I just want to encourage you guys and thank you again.
Ms. Pearson?
Thank you. So thanks to each and every one of you that spoke. I want you to know that your words did not fall on deaf ears. We heard you loud and clear. So if I would simply pull out what I heard a need and a cry for more support for mental health. We had a portion of a reason why attendance is low. And students really desire restorative practices versus negative consequences. Yes. And so I urge administration to really hear the voices of our students. This is what we have been asking for. We wanted to hear directly from them. Reporting back on behalf of someone loses the effect of it. And I am a passionate person. I have a passion for education. I have a passion for mental health. We're on an uprise of issues that we have ignored for decades, which is a contributing factor of why we have so many issues among our youth. So thank you again. You ladies did an amazing job, and we certainly look forward to you coming back again and bring your neighborhoods with you.
If that is all, thank you again.
Righty, thank you all.
Finally, we are on to board reflections. Do any board members have anything to share regarding any school events you've attended or any interactions you've had in the community? Ms. McCall.
Thank you guys again. I'd like to start off with first attending the newcomer science fair at East High School. It was phenomenal. Just the things that are happening there. I stayed as long as I could. I went to the majority of the students to let them present their projects to me, and I know more about atoms and molecules and and all of those things, jogged my memory, so I did that. Additionally, I wanted to, again, congratulate the Guilford flag football team who made it to Orlando and was on ESPN. Had I known, I would have stayed a couple of days and I was in Orlando this weekend and went to to support the students as well there. Just again, thank you to all of the staff and the teachers, bus drivers, everybody who has made an impact on our students' lives and who are striving to make sure that we're giving a world-class education here at RPS 205. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stanford.
A couple of things. The last 2 Saturdays I have spent at the Sports Factory with our Reba Elementary basketball teams. What a fun thing that is. The whole place is full, all the schools around the district, they're all playing. Some boys teams, some girls teams, some co-ed teams, so it's a lot of fun. If you're looking for something to do on Saturday morning, come out, it's a lot of fun. Also, I wanted to thank the MTSS team at Auburn High School for inviting me last Friday to come and participate in an inclusion event that they had. I was only able to stay for the teacher and staff appreciation portion of it, not the student side. I had another engagement, but thank them so much for having me, and that's it.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Oh, you.
Oh, okay. Speaking of code of conduct, so tomorrow night, Wednesday, 5 to 7 is Auburn High School code of conduct listening session. So everyone, please come share your thoughts. If you can't make tomorrow, the 13th of February is at East High School, same time, 5 to 7. And should you not be able to make either of those, Let's Talk is also an avenue to be able to provide feedback. You can email Jen Lawrence. I'm sure she loves lots of emails, but to come and share. So code of conduct revisions is based in listening and based in sharing. So just to make those aware to people.
Thank you so much.
Excuse me.
Ms. Pearson.
That's okay, no problem. So I had an opportunity, and Dr. Jarrett was present as well, to attend the National School Choice Week at Jackson Charter School. And Dr. Wren, Ebony Wren, is doing an absolutely phenomenal job at Jackson Charter School. And she, her entire team really showed up strong. It was a community breakfast, and they just, displayed their vision for the school per se. And one of the things that really got my attention is Dr. Wren walked into a significant opportunity with needs at Jackson School. And she declared this year to be the turnaround year. And she's really driving that. And I follow them on social media. I think I do. I'm sure I do. I get the notifications. Not a real big on social media. But I can tell that they're really offering, giving recognition and praises to the efforts that their students are making. They have gone above and beyond to make sure that their students are present. They've started a PTA, and it is gradually growing and developing. And so it was really good to be there and see their community partners that is on board and offering support. And that is really what it's going to take in our community, is working together. And I support choice. It has to be effective. And I believe that they are on a good path. So that was my report out. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no more lights. That concludes the Stakeholders Committee presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Haley. Mr. Carpenter will now lead the Performance and Monitoring Committee. Mrs. Bennett will.
Okay, so really excited for tonight. So tonight we have one presentation which represents a collaborative effort to elevate the awareness of healthy relationships and the impact of teen dating violence. So before Jen Lawrence gives us lots of good information, I just wanted to say how grateful I am that this is where we are and what we are able to present. I'm so excited that RPS 205 Board of Education is going to be so educated on this topic. They're going to be able to share it far and wide. Same with all of our staff, our students, our families. This project has been way since before I became on the board, and lots of community work and effort over lots of years has gone into this. And so I thank all of the individuals who spent a lot of time and hours putting this together. It is a labor of love, and that's the best way to say it. So I'm looking forward to learning about this for all of us. I'm looking forward to our students having safe buildings, knowing what to do to achieve safety, knowing what to do for their peers, and staff as well. So thank you to everybody that was a part of this, and take it away.
Appreciate that. I don't know why I get to follow kids all the time. So unfortunately, I don't have any with me tonight. That'll be for next year, the update on teen dating violence and healthy relationships. Does anyone have the clicker? So first I want to recognize a few people that were part of this journey. This has been a long journey. It's been a very insightful journey for myself. I learned quite a bit, and as a mom of 2 daughters, I can't ever unlearn the things that I have learned through this process that are extremely valuable pieces for myself and my kids. So I encourage everybody to look through the toolkit. It is written in a specific way to introduce what teen dating violence is, and we'll go through that a little bit later in the slide presentation. But I want to recognize from the Mayor's Office, Jennifer Cacipalia, and from the Family Peace Center, Andrea Carlson. We also had our esteemed board member, Nicole Bennett, and we had Rockford Public Schools, administrators, counselors, and teachers involved in this. The one piece that we didn't get this time was student voice, and we didn't feel that our students were equipped to be able to speak to this because we didn't feel that we were had educated them in teen dating violence to where they would be able to give us good information. So moving forward, as we roll out teen dating violence, part of it will be surveys and responses from students about how we are doing with that and what other additional resources they might need. So as you can see, teen dating violence is extremely pervasive. 1 in 3 high school students are impacted by that. There's a lot of research out there. There are a lot of other community resources in Rockford. There are also national resources for families and kids. And again, I strongly encourage people to look through the toolkit to read more about some of that. By supporting students, so the toolkit, really the first part of it is identifying what teen dating violence is. The second part of it is teaching people what to look for and some of the warning signs and symptoms of things that might be going on with our teens, that either it's pervasive across gender, it's pervasive across student populations and groups, and so the things that you need to look for are identifiable. As part of our campaign for teen dating violence, we're working on early prevention activities. So through the month of February, we are sending information out to parents, and we've split that into 2 separate categories: our K through 5, which would be our students with healthy relationships, and then our teen dating population of our teenagers in middle school and high school. And the focus for them is on pretty much giving them the information about what is teen dating violence, what we'll be doing in our schools, where we're getting our lessons from, and then resources from our community. That's our awareness month. We've also embedded through Wayfinder, which is our social emotional curriculum, lessons throughout the rest of the school year. So we're not just stopping at the end of February with healthy relationships. We're going to continue that for the remainder of the year. And I am working with Sarah Brenner from the schools team to develop some themes throughout all of next school year to where we're weaving in healthy relationships throughout the school year. You can see here what we're going to be doing for staff. We have a Screencastify for our staff members that they can watch a video about teen dating violence, and they will also have access to the toolkit. The toolkit moves through 4 separate sections. The first is to realize, and that is what is teen dating violence, the statistics behind it. The second part of it is to recognize what are the warning signs and what we should be paying attention to with our teens. The third part of it is to respond, and that is what do we do as a staff? How do we respond to students? What to do, what not to do, because there are very specific do nots. And who they should be reporting that information to, because it is a very touchy, delicate topic that really our trained support staff should be dealing with our students with. And then resist re-traumatization, which is how do we respond if it is happening with safety plans, ensuring that our students are safe in our schools. We will have a page on our website that will list the resources for families. That will be in the letter as well to our parents. And that is really it. I hope you don't want a dissertation on what teen dating violence is. I can go through that with anyone on a separate meeting if you'd like. Are there any questions?
Okay, I don't have a question. I just have a few comments. So I think just overall the toolkit, how evidence-based it is, how it is lingo that is digestible for any given person, but it is also very true to people who are in the field, people who do this work, very much aligned with if a child is to see a clinician or is to have any follow-up services, they're going to be saying the same language that we are saying, and it's a consistent message across the board. Also, just the collaboration that went into this. So RPS 205 is a very large ship, and we have a lot of needs and a lot of things that we can get assistance on. And so the fact that we were able to partner with actual professionals in the field who do this work and have really valuable action steps and have an actual living, breathing document is so exciting to me. And also to be able to hand something to a student and be like, this is the thing to do. So just once again, I know I've said this, but just really great job.
Any other questions?
I don't have any questions, but I do want to give a special thanks for the community engagement and everyone that put forth an effort in this. Thank you.
Okay, our last item tonight, thank you so much. Our last item tonight is to preview the consent agenda. Are there any questions, comments on any consent agenda items? Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, this concludes the business of the Performance Monitoring Committee.
Thank you, Mrs. Bennett. Ms. McCall Vice President McCall will now lead Planning and Development Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. There are no items forthcoming for preview of the Planning and Development Committees, but we do have a preview of our consent items. Below are the consent items, agenda items for the Planning and Development Committee. You have item A, IFB 25-19, Gregory E.S. Walls, Doors, and Student Support Space from February 6, 2025. Item B, IFB 25-23, Johnson E.S. Roof Replacement, opening date February 11th, 2025. Item C, IFB 25-25, Gregory E.S. Asbestos Abatement, opening date February 13th, 2025. Item D, IFB 25-26, Marshall E.S. Asbestos Abatement, and opening date to February 11th, 2025. Item E, we're accepting the bid on the health life safety bonds. That completes the report for the Planning and Development Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President McCall. I apologize for being out of sync here, but I see that, and this is, my outline is not very, it's actually under performance and monitoring. I think that there are some things that I just expect to be under development and planning, but again, if something, I guess, if is already in progress, then it would go under performance and monitoring. But I just want to make a comment on it's under the J category, regarding Conklin, HMH. So it sparked my attention on something, and it may not necessarily affect this, but when I saw Conklin, I thought about all of the development that is going to be taking place in our district as a whole. And if you notice, a few weeks ago, there was a panic on federal level with a freeze. And I just want us, and I'll discuss more with Dr. Jarrett on our one-on-one on what we're going to do as a district and making sure that we have the funds that we need as interesting things continue on a federal level. So I just want to make note of that, and it may be an agenda item. We may need to revisit some things, so we're going to park that for now and pick that back up at a later date. Thank you. That concludes for you. Thank you very much. We are now on the governance committee. Now, we had several policies. So this committee made history because we never had this many items. So bear with me because a policy is important. And I see that we have some grouped here. The first item on the agenda is the intergovernmental agreement with the 17th Judicial Circuit Court that allows electronic access to students' record information, eliminating the administrative inefficiencies of providing records and information beyond what is needed by the court. Are there any questions or discussions? Mr. Grant, Schubert.
That's me. Yashika, so in the last line of the executive summary says the district proposes that the parties enter into an agreement that allows court-directed staff access to student record information in eSchool. So it'll only be a specific individuals, and how will you determine who gets access to that?
So there are specific staff that, absent this agreement, would have to subpoena information each time. And when they subpoena that information, either the student records department, the school, or the legal department attempts to gather all this various information. So we may gather the attendance reports for the year, progress reports, and all this information. Whereas presently, like what they intend to do is have designated probation officers with the students that are assigned to them through the court. They will submit a consent to share record information that's signed by that student's parent guardian. They will share that with the legal department and the school, and then they will have access to eSchool for that student where they can see the specific information that they're looking for, rather than us gathering a bunch of records that they then have to sift through for the information that they're looking for. Because typically they're looking for attendance, they may be looking for behavior incidents, or maybe something related to support.
Okay.
Those kinds of things.
So eSchool, is my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, if they're in eSchool, they could look up any student.
Correct, but we have the agreement that is binding them to look up the designated students for which they provide us a consent to share information that's compliant with FERPA and the Illinois School Student Records Act.
And you feel strongly enough that the language would keep them within those parameters, and that they wouldn't look up maybe, so if it's a probation officer that is working with a different student and that information has been asked for, and they look it up on their own, and they could hold them to account for, you know what I mean?
We would hope so. My specific designee that I worked with on this agreement was Taryn Marco with the probation department. It is signed by the chief judge of the Winnebago County Courts. So the hope would be that they would be ethically bound in their profession as we are in ours.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Carpenter.
Thanks. And so I think the first part of that was that they would notify the district when and what student they're going to look up, correct?
Yes, and they would sign consents to share information signed by that student's parent guardian as well.
And right now, they get that information with a subpoena or a court order. Is that correct?
They should be, but they're working directly with schools at this time. So the information sharing is broad and in-depth, and sometimes we get swamped with subpoenas.
Okay. Under this agreement, though, they won't need a court order or a subpoena. They'll just have a consent signed by the
They will
parent.
still have a court order related to the student. So they get a juvenile court order that orders that student to attend school and comply with school rules, and requires that student to allow them to monitor with respect to school. The order is not directed at the school district. We are not subject to that order, but that's what exists at this time. So this is an effort to link that community support and intervention with access to information.
Is there any way on the e-school part, is there a way to limit what student the person can look up? Like, instead of giving them carte blanche and
Yes.
trusting that they're not going to look up anyone else?
We considered allowing them parental access to the students, the way parents see students in the system, but we were advised that there is some type of technical issue, and at this point, I'm probably not the right person to weigh in on that. But we attempted to give them parent-only access to the information, and they indicated to us that information was not quite sufficient.
I see Mr. Barthel has his light on for that.
Yeah, so I can weigh in on this. With our particular system, there are some limitations just to the parental access, whereas they wouldn't have specific view into some certain pieces that the juvenile probation officer may need. I will say that we do have some significant logging in the system, and that we're able to see at any point where the particular folks have looked at records and things like that. So at any point, we could pull a log from the system to ensure that they're looking at the things they're supposed to be looking at.
Okay, that was actually my next question, if you would be able to tell who has looked up, or actually, if you could go to so-and-so has access, can you look up all the people that person has looked up?
Absolutely. We can see everything that they do in the system with a date and time stamp.
Okay.
By individual.
Mrs. Bennett.
So what would be, for RPS 205, what is the benefit of us doing this? I understand the benefit on the other side very clearly, but what would be the benefit for us to do this?
The benefit at this point is that when we receive subpoenas for information on any given day, we have had Student Services Department assisting with this kind of record gathering via contracts with YSN personnel who work directly with the court. They've assisted, and in their absence, when there were interruptions in that contractual service, we've been inundated with subpoenas. We provide all of the relevant information, but it's beyond what they need. It's inefficient. So we would have court personnel or lawyers calling us the day before or the day of court asking for specific information when we've provided lots of information, but the information they needed was specific. So this way, it just avoids, it's my understanding that what they present to the court is a kind of a one-pager report. that has something like attendance, any behavioral incidents, and maybe some other specific detail that they're looking for. Whereas what we provide when they ask for all the temporary records from this date to this date is well beyond what they need. So it just creates an inefficiency for us, a legal department with one paralegal, and possibly not YSN support on those specific matters, and the involved probation department. It just creates tremendous inefficiency with the subpoenas. Did I answer the question? I feel like...
Yeah, sorry, yes, you did. Thank you for answering.
Okay.
I'm just trying to articulate my thoughts because I'm extremely uncomfortable with this. I don't like this idea. I don't like the idea of the courts having access to eSchool. I think a contractor who's contracted with the district to provide a service that is a beneficial service to a student is a different conversation than the school district allowing the courts, which, depending on what the situation is, could not be a beneficial outcome for a student. So my personal opinion is I don't like any part of this. So I'm trying to wrap my brain around the reason other than convenience as to why we would just, and I understand like workload, and I'm not being disrespectful to that, but to say that it's just more convenient and it's easier to do that is we would just have to weigh out the liability and the cost to a student to do this, and also making sure that if we were going to release information, it would be the ownership of us to explain a consent and a release to a family member. We are now assuming that another entity, which is not RPS 205, is doing their due diligence and making sure a family is truly understanding what they are signing their release to, right? Like we have all kinds of information about students' behavior, incidents, and things like that that could be used against a student in some manner, and that's, I don't know, for a different day. But but we would make sure that the family member is understanding what their rights are and are understanding what they would be releasing. But now we would be just giving blanket access to another entity to make that decision, and I'm just uncomfortable with it.
Okay. The only thing I would clarify with regard to the consent is the Illinois School Student Records Act mandates what goes in that consent. It tells you what you're consenting to, what the purpose of this sharing of information is for, that you can revoke consent at any time, and also the implications of not consenting. So all of those are statutorily mandated pieces of information that are in the consent. Those are in the consents that we provide to any and every entity that wishes to share student record information. And then the final piece would be that if the information is subpoenaed, they would still receive the information, and we simply tell the family that this information was subpoenaed, it's going to be provided, and it's happening. So, and my final thought on that would be with regard to more of a philosophical perspective of court-involved youth. I know in Winnebago County, they engage with various entities to support youth who are court-involved, and this is part of that process. So from the legal department's perspective, we are looking to not be an obstructionist partner as we engage in the community's intended support for the community, for the students.
So can you, if I'm hearing you correctly, the last thing you were saying is in a situation where a youth is court involved due to truancy, for example, you wouldn't want to be an obstructionist, that they wouldn't be able to get the services that they need by not letting them have access to information that they could get through a subpoena.
To be very candid, we have been accused in the past of not being as participatory as some would wish. We have spoken with different judges in the community about our willingness to participate. I've personally communicated with Judge Holmgren and other judges at different times on what the information sharing process looks like for the district. Different judges have had different perspectives and approaches that they preferred, and presently this is the approach that the chief judge is wishing to engage in through the juvenile department.
And with all due respect, I don't work for the courts, I don't govern the courts, so I govern Rockford Public Schools, and my interest is students. And so I hear you, but I am not comfortable making it easier for another entity to have access to our student data. I'm not comfortable with that. Somebody else can weigh in. I'm not going to continue to share my discomfort with it. I have yet to hear a good reason other than it would make it easier for the courts. That's all.
Attorney Holdley.
A couple different things. What this does, it actually codifies what has been happening in the district for probably 30 some years. When we learned that the probation officers did have access, we brought this forward as an IGA because we felt like we should do that. Also under the Juvenile Justice Act, they don't even require a court order to get this information, so it already is available. That's one of the exceptions under the Student Records Act. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we do have a process in place. And the final thing is, and what Jason or Mr. Barthel had indicated, is that we are already, we have the ability to have that audit trail to see what they're using or who they're accessing. So this does give us an ability for oversight over that. But finally, as part of their probation agreement, the family does have to sign off on approval for the probation officers to get that. So it's really already, the arm twisting occurs in the court before it comes to the district. So they really don't have an option when they become justice involved.
Okay, so I just want to clarify what you're saying. So you said it doesn't require a court order, the data would already be provided. What does that, what are you, like what type of data are you saying?
So if the court asked for a juvenile delinquent for information for somebody who's been identified under the delinquency laws, then we do have to provide that information, and that's without a court order. And so we're using the term subpoena loosely. It's really a court order, not a subpoena. But in order to release confidential student records information. So it does require a court order or one of the exceptions. And one of the exceptions is a student who is involved with the courts in through the criminal justice system. So that's one of them, the exceptions out there to release that confidential student information.
Okay, so number 3, for example, says identification of personally identifiable information. To the extent any data and information is available to the district and required to be disclosed pursuant to a judicial order, so meaning a court order, the items or categories, and then it names a bunch of different categories.
Right.
So that would mean any of that information would have to have a court order, not that it's already just automatically released, that you'd have to have a court order for those items, correct? So what I also hear us saying is that for in e-school, they would have to get order in court, and the parents would have to consent, and then they could go into e-school, but they would already have access in e-school before that even happens. And there would be no mechanism in between, as RPS 205, to know, do they have the court order in hand before they're accessing e-school, is that correct?
Correct, and that's why we wanted to make sure we had an IGA and brought it to the board so that it's full disclosure to you, and you can weigh those concerns and issues. So they should not access the student records without having the court order and without the student being judicially involved. So in which case, if they do, they would be violating our IGA, and we would remove access to the individual who is violating it.
So, Ms. Stafford.
So I understand that a court-involved student, their information is going to be shared one way or another. But this is going to give the probation officers or whoever's involved on the court side access to all of our students. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. Well, it gives them access, but they're not to access it. Just like employees are not allowed. You may have access to certain students, but we're not allowed to access them without the reasonable and
right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's where I see the problem.
Yeah, it is. And that's, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Vice President McCall.
Thank you guys for this robust discussion about it. My question is, having been a previous social worker and needing different information on court-involved students, I understand the need for these this transaction. However, I know that Mr. Bartell mentioned that there are safeguards. I think it will make me feel a little more comfortable knowing the cadence of these safeguards. It's not like, oh, we just checked it once a year and see what everybody was looking at. Like, just seeing if there's what that safeguard actually looks like. I know you said you can find it, it's all time stamped and everything, but periodically or what kind of cadence would that be to assure that the probation officer is not viewing files or of people that they're not assigned to?
So currently, we would act on that based on legal request, but we could absolutely put a schedule together on how that would look going forward with this particular agreement as well. But if we have any requests from legal, we would absolutely run that report if there's concern about a probation officer or anything from the courts that we're potentially looking at things that they weren't. There's also certain things we can set up for triggers to identify that they're looking. They would be looking outside of their current caseload. So we have those potential setups for reports to actually run that on an automated system as well. Again, we're not doing it on a routine basis without hearing from legal, but we do have that capability to do so.
Mr. Carpenter.
Did Attorney Hoadley say that we're codifying what's happening already? So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is what.
She's coming to the podium.
I know. If she can answer, or Ms. Goldsmith.
Yes, we recently learned that probation officers had access, and they've had access for years, and we didn't know about that in the legal department. I don't know how many. It's been going on forever, but when it came to our attention, we felt like this is the step we need to take. So we first tried to give them parent access, the same level as parent access. But they ran into issues with that. I'm not exactly sure what it was. So Ms. Goldsmith then negotiated the IGA with the county, or with the clerk, sorry. Mm-hmm.
The court, okay. And then, so if they've had access, have they been giving us the notices that they've been supposed to be giving us, or?
Not in our department.
And then.
So it may have out at the schools, I don't know.
Do you know if any other districts have agreements like this with the 17th Circuit?
I have no idea.
Okay, thanks.
Mrs. Bennett, or Mrs. Stanford, she had her line on
Sorry.
first.
So if we vote this down, are we going to revoke their access? Or are they going to continue to have access?
No, we would revoke it. And then we would process it like we do any other request.
Okay.
Mrs. Bennett.
That was just my question of, is the ability to just revoke their act, like, I feel like we have a whole plan on how we would continue the access that they had without our knowledge. So wouldn't the opposite or a different option also be to just remove their access?
It is.
Okay.
And then we would just figure out how to make sure we can comply with it, because they regularly request the records, but that would be our issue.
Or if there was even a way to go about doing a training for them to say, like, this is the way to write a court order to limit the things that you need, instead of asking for blanket court orders or anything like that. I feel like this is a 11-page document that's very, very detailed and outlined. We could provide a memo, we could provide a training, something that would be helpful to the courts in some capacity to narrow their scope of what they're asking, instead of, I am only one board member, but I am absolutely adamantly against this idea. So any other way that it could be done, I would appreciate discussion about. So
Anyone else?
I'm just
Ms. Haley?
curious what information with the parental access, why would they need more access than a parent would have?
So it's not specific. With the parental access, it's locked down by building. So we can't give them that higher level access without giving them this higher level access here so they can access students across the district. If I'm a parent, if I got a student at 3 different schools, my parental access only locks me down to those particular schools. I wouldn't be able to get to other locations. That's just a restriction of our system and how it's set up. So that's why we did have to move forward with this higher level access, because we have court-involved students at many buildings across the district.
Okay, so there's a couple of, and Lori, please don't be too far. So there is a couple of concerns about this. One, we did not know that they had access. That is a concern. Another concern is there was negotiation, and there was a lot of moving parts in our district. So maybe this topic have come up, but it would be nice for board members to know in detail when there's a negotiation going on that you're seeking our approval for. Does that make sense? So the administration recommends the board approve the proposed intergovernmental agreement with the 17th Judicial Circuit Court. It does not mean that we have to. And so feeling uncomfortable or completely disagreeing, I would much rather that we table this and have further discussion rather than to bring it and we vote it down, because I think that creates a gap at our community, and we need to secure our access. Does that make sense, Ms. Stanford?
I'm not sure what you mean by secure our access.
So they had access already.
Right.
And we didn't know anything about it. That is not a violation?
Well, and
how?
It was definitely a concern that we felt we needed to address. So I think it's always with large organizations like this, some decision was made many years ago. I don't know. I'm sure no one is around still, whoever made that decision. And so when we learned about it, that's when it became an issue for us to deal with.
And when did we learn about it?
I think we revoked it last summer, and that's when we gave them parental access. And so when that wasn't working last fall is when Ms. Goldsmith started negotiating the IGA. So it was last fall, because we first tried the parental access, and that wasn't working for them.
So all of this was going on, and the board did not know?
Right. Well, we thought we solved it by the parental access. And when that didn't happen, that's when we brought the IGA then.
Well, again, so what are we going to do? That is a question. What are we going to do to revoke the access that they do have until this matter is fully and completely resolved?
It's just as simple as shutting the accounts off for those individuals. We could do it in half an hour.
Okay, well, let's make that half an hour happen. And we will figure out a way and how they can continue to get what they need. And going forward, this is, let's just use this as an example. And you can do what you do as a legal department. But I do ask that we kind of look ahead and think about what ifs. If this does not happen, then what? And kind of, just for the sake of communication in your report of what is being done, because it's not exactly the best look, because we'd want to work together. but we cannot do that without effective communication and for us to stay in a position of protecting our students. Okay? Thank you. Oh, Ms. Bennett, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I have one more question. So you referenced that or maybe Ms. Goldsmith said it, I can't remember who, I think it was Ms. Goldsmith, said that YSN traditionally was kind of like the pass-through. So in our current contract that we have with YSN, is it outlined in their contract for them to have eSchool access?
And I should clarify, the YSN people were accessing information for truancy-related issues, and this information is for juvenile probation officers. So two different sectors, both court involved.
Okay, so in their contract, though, is it, does anybody know, or could we get follow-up to know?
YSN, those are our agents that we give them access, so it's similar to employees when we give access to student records. So,
but is it outlined specifically in their contract that they do have access? Because in theory, we're saying a contract and agreement with somebody else didn't say it, so I'm just wanting to double down and make sure that if they do have access and we've granted it, is it outlined specifically that they can have access?
I'll have to look.
Okay.
Yeah, this is different because the probation officers are not our agents. They're not acting on our behalf. YSN, we contract with YSN and they are acting on our behalf. So that's the distinction between it, but I will look to see. I know there's references in the typical agreements we have about confidential student information, but I'll look to see.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Next is the review of policies. We will review policies each month by the group number, beginning with those in section 100. These policies cover the school district's organization. Of course, I'm going to touch on some of the policies, and if you have any questions, do as we usually do by hitting the light. So, policy 1.10, the Illinois Constitution requires the state to provide an efficient system of high-quality public education institutions and services in order to achieve the educational development of all persons to the limits of their capability. I read that because services popped out, and I want to make sure, first of all, we're kind of behind schedule on policies. It was an early request that we review policies. Policies is the glue that keep the organization together. And when we are not reviewing policies and enforcing policies, it is easy and it creates a culture of violating policy because we're not addressing it. So I want to stress how important it is that we put our minds together and make sure that our students are getting the services needed for them to be successful in their educational career. Policy 1.20 is not something that I need to address in this moment. Policy 1.30, school district philosophy. So this caught my attention as well because it does not reflect our quote that we state at the start of each board meeting. The mission of Rockford Public Schools as an educational system committed to excellence is to serve the community by equipping all of its diverse students with tools necessary. And it goes on to talk about compete in global marketplace, succeed in future educational pursuits, and contribute to society. But equity is not mentioned in this, and I think that is something that we need to visit for consistency and to be a part of the policy. Are there any questions or discussions? Item C is the review of board policy 2.150, which covers the committee structure given the discussion and our self-evaluation, I thought we might again review this policy. So the committees is definitely worth having a discussion, and I'm going to ask each board member, because the majority of the board members, we all play a role in the committees. So I'm going to ask you to take a look at the policy and email me your recommendations, because we really will need to revise this policy. We did have discussion about committee chairs and their input on the agenda. Given the recent experience with the committee chairs being asked one thing and given a recommendation, we missed so much in that piece. So I am going to definitely welcome committee chairs to make recommendations and add things to the agenda, but not without including me. Because what I don't want is that the appearance of a workaround. I've already talked to the committee, so that settles it. So the part of the policy where the board president and the superintendent will work together to create the agenda will remain in place. The committee chairs will have say in what goes on the agenda in their committee. Again, if you will email me your recommendations on the revision of this policy, which is 2.150, would be appreciated. Any questions or discussion? Mr. Carpenter.
Can you remind me what the policy you just mentioned about the agenda setting, that's not included in this policy, correct?
So actually it is another part to this in regards to, I mentioned before, so you can review 2.110 and 2.150. Does that clarify it for you?
I think so, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And if you also, as you're reviewing these, the policies, if you have feedback on your thoughts on the co-chair, I still strongly support that because of the heavy agendas that we have. But I do welcome feedback on that. Items D through K will be placed on regular board agenda for action. These are series of policies with summary of proposed changes. So board policy 2.172, 4. and 4.60 are revised at the request of the Finance Department to remove reference budget attached A. So I do have some concerns about that, and bear with me because it is much detail here. So that is, again, 4.60 and 2.172. So it is my understanding that the Illinois Constitution grants a Board of Education latitude in governing. Lori, this is where I may need your input, or Yashika. I know Yashika is here. Governing their school districts subject to the state laws and regulations. The local school board is required to adopt and enforce all policies necessary for the management and governance of the public schools of the district. So that is my understanding. So when we, recommendations is, of course, is accepted. But I find it interesting that when I brought to the attention in regards, and this could be in crossing another policy, but there's a lot of redlining, and I need clarity on that because some part of the paragraphs are underlined and some are lined through. So for the sake of clarity, the items that are redlined through, you want to remove from the policy, correct?
Yes, and per the school code, the board authorizes all of the district's expenditures, whether you do it through the budget or individualized items that are presented on the board agendas. All of the expenditures of the district are approved by the budget. The budget attachment A was a means that finance had developed in an effort to, I guess, create some type of efficiency with regard to how the district was managing approval of those expenditures. Dr. Brown can speak more to that, but the removal of that budget attachment A does not remove the board's authority to and the requirement that the district present all expenditures to the board for approval.
Okay, and Mr. Brown, I would like to hear from you, please.
Sure. So the reason that we're recommending to take this language out is over the years, budget attachment A has been really used as a vehicle to put a bunch of contracts on one big document for just blanket approval by the board rather than individual items coming to the board. A lot of the contracts that were showing up on budget attachment A were still coming back to the board for approval because they were so large. And putting together budget attachment A is quite an exercise. And honestly, people were putting stuff on budget attachment A and maybe not thoroughly reviewing these contracts. And we felt like sometimes things were just automatically getting renewed year after year after year without a lot of due diligence being put into whether this was something we needed to continue with. And so by taking this conglomerate of everything going on budget attachment A for you guys to approve when you approve the overall budget, we just wanted to kind of back off and have the major contracts, basically everything above $35,000 that does need to come forward to you guys to just come individually rather than coming on a consolidated, 8-page attachment that, probably was hard for you guys to really look at and really parse through what we were asking for approval on. So, you may see more things coming through the consent agenda, for approval by the board, but we thought for transparency purposes, it was better if things just started to come back through individually when they needed to, rather than just showing up on one big attachment.
Okay, I can understand that. I'm seeing red lines through amounts in excess to $35,000, and I also have concerns, and maybe it does not affect this policy, but the recent issue with a collective contract being over $35,000. What I don't want to happen is the strategy of piecemealing a portion of a contract that ultimately exceeds the $35,000, but at the time that we agreed to the contract, it was below $35,000. So this is why I am concerned about redlining information. Anything related to in excess to the $35,000 is only because of previous experience.
Sure.
So I'm reluctant, and I do not encourage the board to support any portion of this policy that it is related to in the excess of $35,000. So whatever we need to do to go back to the table and take a look at this, so we're not redlining any portion of the $35,000, I'm in full support of. But other than that, I am not, and I discourage the board in supporting any changes to that.
Yeah, so this does clarify that anything in excess of $35,000 does have to come to you. So that's really what this clarifies.
Okay, I want to make.
Yeah.
sure of that.
Yeah,
And
and we are working on the budget process here to make sure that when people are putting their contracts together, this year that are going to come to the board for approval, that they have thought this through and that we don't end up in that situation that we were talking about last month where, we ended up short and then haven't had to hustle to try and get something approved. So that's what we're absolutely working on for this coming budget cycle.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So policy 2.172 was attached to that, and I think we covered that let's take a look here. So $35,000 is also mentioned in this policy as well. So again, I stress that I don't want any what look like a workaround in where it relates to the $35,000. Okay? Thank you. Policy 4.30 is revised to allow district funds to be invested in obligation of corporation if obligations mature more than 270 days but less than 10 years. Mr. Brown, you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. This was just a change to the investment policy for the state. And so this is really just updating for statutory changes that are allowed in the investment policy of the state that the school districts also follow.
Okay, that's also in budget attachment A. Oh, no, 4.30. Okay. One moment, please.
These were recommended press policy changes.
Thank you. One moment, please. There were a few pages. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything on this particular policy. Actually, Mr. Brown, I'll schedule a one-on-one with you. Does that work for you? Okay, Board Policy 4.170 is revised to reflect the statutory mandate that at least one automatic external defibrillator be present in each district attendance center during the school day and during the district-sponsored extracurricular activity on school grounds. I did have a question because it seemed like there was an item redlined on this. Maybe it's not this one. Yeah, the automated external defibrillator. There's a red line through that to be available at every physical fitness facility on premises. Are you saying that, is this one that press recommended too, and did they have a rationale?
There was a statutory change that they used to say the AEDs had to be at each like field house or gym facility, and now it has to be in each attendance center. So when you're looking on page 2 of 3, the first sentence spells out automated external defibrillator, and then later in the paragraph, it's just stricken to say AED. So that's the only reason it's stricken, because it's spelled out in the very first sentence of that paragraph.
Okay, but are we going to have it in those facilities?
Yes, yes, we'll have them beyond just the field houses and gyms. Now
Okay.
we have to have it in each attendance center.
Okay, very good. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yep.
So board policies 5.10, 5.20, and 7.10 are being revised to align with amendments to the Illinois Human Rights Act which now prohibits discrimination against individuals based on their reproductive health decisions and family responsibility. So there was that pretty much explains it on 7.10, but I did have questions on 5.10, equal employment opportunity and minority recruitment, 5.0, workplace harassment and discrimination prohibited. So this spells out very good. I would like this to be revised to reflect that in our efforts for equal employment opportunity, that one candidate would not be put in a place of an advantage over another. I think that it is very important that that is clear if we're going to indeed adopt equal employment opportunity. So again, no one employee should be in a position to be in an advantage over another. Any questions on that? And 5.20 is pretty self-explanatory, so. Just making a quick note here. Thank you for your patience. Policy 5.230 is revised so that corporal punishment is defined, in accordance with the Illinois School Code. So under maintaining, bear with me one moment here. Maintaining student discipline here indicates that, it states, please refer to professional agreement between the Rockford Education Association and the Rockford Board of Education. It goes on to say that red line, well, the teachers is red line, school personnel, so school personnel, you're not singling out teachers. It is for the entire school personnel. Shall not use disciplinary methods that may be damaging to students, such as ridicule or excessive temper displays. Corporal punishment, including slapping, paddling. So this red line is because this is not permitted in the schools, period, correct?
Yes, the language and examples there included there previously were reflective of case law and, a common understanding of what corporal punishment is, but now—
I'm sorry, did you say case law or faith law?
Case law, okay. Case law. There are cases that have examples of punishment for which teachers were dismissed, and some of those included slapping hands with rulers, physically slapping, the things that are were listed there that are now being stricken because now we have a statutory definition of corporal punishment in the blue underline.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And I believe this is the last one.
Can I just...
I'm sorry, Mr. Carpenter.
Just real quick on that. I wonder if there could be a citation to where in the professional agreement that we're supposed to refer to, at the top. I don't know how long that's been in that policy, but...
I can certainly make a note to add that.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Board Policy 6.60 is revised to incorporate curriculum mandates imposed by legislator, including requiring student drivers to be educated on road workers' safety, ensuring students in 6th through 12th grade are educated on the dangers of fentanyl and are engaged in career exploration and career development activities, and educating students on climate change and other environmental issues. Are there any comments or questions about any of these proposed policy changes? I would like to have a one-on-one with Superintendent Jarrett and Mrs. Detman regarding policies on the curriculum. And it's a lot highlighted here, and I'm not going to go over everything, but a real simple one, and there's an article out there on in curriculum content. There's a cursive writing. I didn't even know they use that term anymore. So what happened that we stopped teaching kids how to write in cursive?
We do teach kids how to write in cursive.
So why aren't we seeing that? At what age are we start?
We should be seeing handwriting and cursive writing beginning in, I believe it's 3rd grade.
Okay,
So
the
we
reason
start
why I ask, the reason why I ask that, because there's a segment on is it the EIAs, where there's a statement stating that they were read, the details of it, and I have not seen cursive yet. And so that's why I thought that we just did not teach it anymore, because I haven't seen it. And there is a young lady that I know that I mentor, and I sent her a note in cursive. She's a freshman, and she told me she does not know how to read cursive. So I'm trying to understand the breakdown of how we are.
So there were, and I don't know exactly how many years when teaching cursive was not mandated and was not part of the state standards, and I'll have to go back and I'll come up with a better answer here for you on when it came back into our state standards. It became an expectation, but we do have some supplemental resources to support, and I'm seeing it come home as a parent of an elementary age child, but there was a series of years where it wasn't required. I'll get the timeline for you on that, though.
Okay, and since I'm on the subject matter of curriculum, the same young lady that I mentor have areas of opportunity academically, and I share with the mother that perhaps she can talk to her teachers while homework is not assigned, that perhaps they could send a note home with the student on what they could work on at home, and she was denied that. But I'll pick that up with our one-on-one that I hope that we're able to do in the near future.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments regarding the policy changes? We do not have any petitions and communications. We do? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Wolf. Yes, Mr. Kyle Wolf. Thank you. We'll let him go.
Okay, I assume green is on, yep. Tonight I had a different speech that I wanted to give you, but I heard from a Roosevelt student tonight, and as a Roosevelt teacher, I just had to say something because I thought that was pretty powerful. So I wrote this. Tonight we heard from a student who was struggling in the traditional school system. And we also heard from a Roosevelt student who found success through strong relationships and flexibility, things they didn't experience in a traditional school. This raises a critical question. Why can't all of our schools provide this level of support? The truth is, our teachers care deeply, but they are overwhelmed. They are drowning under large class sizes and excessive responsibilities, leaving them unable to give students the attention they deserve. We cannot ask them to perform miracles without providing the time and the tools they need. I think it's time for a shift, and I've thought this a long time as a Roosevelt teacher, that we need radical change. I feel we must restructure this district to replicate Roosevelt's success across all schools. Let's embrace creative solutions, perhaps online courses, flexible schedules, personalized learning plans, so we meet students where they are, academically, emotionally, and socially. I think we should put it all on the table. We got to do something different. Why not? But none of this is possible without first supporting our educators. We must reduce class sizes, provide useful resources, and give teachers the flexibility and autonomy they need. When our teachers thrive, our students thrive. So I really think we should think back to what that student said tonight. She broke down right here. She was touched at Roosevelt. She was touched by the teachers there. I know that story all too well. Why can't we bring it to all the schools? What's keeping us from doing it? Let's reflect on that. Let's find the answers, because this should be experienced by all RPS students. I simply don't understand why we can't do it. So let's come together, educators, administrators, and community members, to transform education in this district. Our students are worth it, our teachers are worth it, and our future depends on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Are there any questions or comments regarding the governance content items? If not, are there any agenda recommendations or business oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Carpenter.
Actually, that was the second question I was going to answer, so recommendations for agenda items. I was wondering if we could get an update sometime from legal, if there's been any guidance suggested by the Council of School Attorneys or the IASB about immigration issues in the schools and interventions with federal authorities. If we could get that sometime reasonably soon, I would appreciate it. Thanks.
Ms. Bennett?
And just to add to what Mr. Carpenter said, at least 10 different people, if not maybe more than that, have reached out to me specifically asking for the policy. So different community members just wanting to kind of know, different parents, kind of what their rights are and whatnot. So I don't know if there's a way coming forward. I know we did a statement, which I very much appreciate RPS 205's stance and very much support that stance. But I think it would ease people's mind to have an actual understanding of their legal rights and kind of what our position is and how that actually would exist inside a school building. So a presentation of something would be helpful, I think, to the community.
And was the question ever asked in regards to the specific policy related to that?
We don't have a specific policy on immigration itself, but we do, we have policies on sharing of confidential student record information. We have a policy on interaction with law enforcement. And I think it's important to, just for everyone to understand that if officers are showing up at the school, we are not randomly sharing information absent an arrest warrant or a court order. So if a person were to show up and ask for an individual student, we would not tell the confidential student record information of where that person's class is and where they're located or whether they were in attendance that day. Both of those pieces of information are confidential.
Okay, so I would encourage that we compose a policy where it relates to how, only because we still have opportunity for communication. And I don't want at the school level to feel like because authority have shown up that they have to respond. So I don't, to get ahead of that, I think that it would be in our best interest to work on something. And also, I would encourage us to pay close attention to Governor Pritzker and his commitment to the Illinoisans. And that is certainly where I am looking for directives where it relates to public education. I understand that the state cannot carry everything, but I am trusting the work of our governor and our attorney generals that have across the country that have decided to band together. Anything else? If not, I'll take a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you for your patience and have a good night. Oh, you did? Yeah.